Tony Benedict, thank you so much for being here.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Matteo. Thanks for the invite to your podcast.
I'm very happy to have you here, Tony. And today we're going to talk, I think, about a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about pharma and AI and what potential for change exists because of AI in an industry that has been so set on its ways for a long time, like pharma, right?
Yeah.
But to talk about that, I wanna get started by talking about you. Who is Tony Benedict? What do you do today for a living?
hmm Well, I've done the big corporate thing. I worked in Fortune 100, Fortune 50, Fortune 500 most of my career, and then started working for what they call middle market, and did a lot of mergers and acquisitions on the post-acquisition integration side in pharma and in healthcare. And then I went out on my own and basically do the big umbrella is called business transformation, and it's really changing the way you do business to grow and monetizing technology investments to do that.
And who will be, if you had to, for the benefit of the audience, who is a typical or who is your ideal customer profile today?
I do a fair amount of interim executive work. So chief operating officer, SVP operations, sort of the right-hand person of the CEO. And again, these are what they call middle market companies, which range anywhere from, on the low end, probably 50 million in revenue to maybe 4 or 5 billion a year. So, and everything in between, a lot of the in between, 150 to 200 million a year, 500 million a year, a billion a year in revenue is sort of I'd say the median revenue number of companies that I do work for. And it's it's an interesting market. I mean, I have a pretty decent network, and the question I always get is, well, you've been with bigger companies. Are you going to be able to handle working for a smaller company? And the answer is yes. I mean, I don't understand why they're so hesitant. Bigger companies used to be smaller companies at one time, right? And smaller companies have less bureaucracy. So if you're trying to get things done, it's a lot quicker, or you can do it a lot quicker with less cultural constraints in middle market than in, let's say a global multinational, which takes forever to get anything done. So I do that. I enjoy the work. Again, I'll do the interim side, or I'll do the consulting side. Sometimes they come together, which is even better.
When you do the interim, how long does it typically last? Are we talking 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? It depends.
Yeah, the minimum contract for me is 3 months. If you don't have a 3-month slot, then I'm not sure what you're going to do. Most of them do. I've never encountered somebody that's had less than 3 months. Usually it's 3 to 6. 6 is probably the most common, until they can decide what they want to do. Are they going to fill the position, eliminate the position, change the position, split it into two? I mean, who knows? Anything can happen depending on what's going on with the company. If they get bought out in the interim, it's kind of a moot point, right? Whoever the acquiring company is going to step in, and they're going to eliminate the position in the target company anyway. So, which works fine for me because I'm there on an interim basis anyway.
And so a lot of leadership, a lot of the work in these leadership roles is about relationships. It's about, getting the team and getting the other leaders in the company to play at the level that they should be playing to inspire change and everything, right? So how deep do you get into those relationships, and do you sometimes feel like you want to stay more, or because you know that you're just going to be there for a while, you also treat relationships in a certain way that is going to make it easier for you to go when you need to go? Or I'm trying to, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, what is, how hard is it for you when you are living in terms of the relationships that maybe you build even those small periods of time?
Yeah, yeah. It's a difficult question to answer with just one answer because every situation you go into is very different. And it depends who's hiring you. Is it the CEO? Is it the chief operating officer? And you're the SVP of operations, et cetera. And so it's who's hiring you. It's also what's the problem that they believe needs to be addressed, or if they're implementing a program and they need a leader, whatever it may be. Again, you have to understand what that is, understand their expectations, and then sit down and kind of walk through sort of what you're going to bring to the table, and what you expect from them, right? And so it's a very candid conversation before you even start, before you even sign a contract. And then once they feel comfortable going, yeah, we definitely want you on board. We like what you've done. We like, the ideas you put forth in your proposal, whatever. And then you start. And really, the objective is to um, generate the outcome they're looking for while you're there, whatever that may be. Again, if you're implementing a program that was started and a person left, or in some cases they pass away unexpectedly or whatever, or they were fired because they couldn't get any traction, whatever it may be. You really have to establish relationships fairly quickly across your peer level, and then your direct reports and the frontline staff. You have to establish those relationships very quickly, and you're leaning on them. And in some cases, you're coaching them on how to help you be the change agent, right? I know how to be a change agent, but they don't. So I'm coaching them on how to do it and what I need them to do and how they should probably do it, because I don't know their culture very well. Although in about 2 or 3 weeks, you kind of know what it is, right, when you're there. And so that's sort of how it starts unfolding. And you develop really good relationships with people, because I can tell you that um, in almost every instance, a lot of the people they welcome a fresh perspective, and they welcome someone with enthusiasm who's actually going to do things and get things done. I think there's a problem in leadership today, across the board. I saw it in big corporations, big time. But it's also in middle market, and it's for different reasons. In big corporations, leaders are afraid to take informed risks because they don't want to suffer the consequences if they fail. So there's this big fear of failure. And so you kind of jog in place for a while, nothing really gets done. The market changes, and all of a sudden you decide to kill the program or change the direction or whatever, right? All kinds of crazy stuff happen in big companies. In middle market, you have a lot of leaders that, um, you know, they haven't acquired all the appropriate skills that they need to really invoke and lead change, in their market. And so it's not that they can't do it, it's that they just need some help. And so if they try to do it on their own without help, um, you run into the same problems, right? Well, I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to be accountable for that. So they'll always bring consultants in, and picking the right consultants is always a challenge, and they may not have done that before. Um, and so I think the leadership side of it, there's a lot of room for really good interim leaders. And some of those interim gigs turn out to be full-time gigs, right? Um, I just I've done all that, so I'd rather just do the interim. To me, it's more exciting. Um, but you have to be able to be a jack of all trades across multiple disciplines within a company, right? You have to understand sales, finance, operations. If they're manufacturing, you need to understand that, the supply chain, product differentiation strategy. And some leaders, unfortunately, are very, very good in their area. They might be the best salesperson or sales manager ever, but they don't have any exposure to anything else. They've never run a program that is cross-functional, how to govern it, et cetera. So I just think there's a lot of opportunity in the interim space, which is why I kind of started doing it. And I've been fortunate in that I've worked across multiple industries and multiple disciplines. So I have that broad managerial perspective, and I can interact with all those leadership roles because I speak all of their languages. So that's played out for me quite well. And for me, it's fun. I love doing it. You're never bored ever.
Right. And I guess that also you have a massive network, very strong network, but it keeps strengthening, right? Each time you go into a company and you help them improve and you held an interim role and you meet a lot of people and you help executives learn more about change management, et cetera, et cetera. Those people will move on, and those people will remember Tony, and those people will remember the experience and learning from Tony, and those can become your future clients as well.
Yeah. I try to keep in touch with everybody I've ever worked with. And in one instance, one was a generic pharma company. I won't get into the backstory, but I had to hire a lot of people, and train a lot of people
Right.
in supply chain and operations, because it was the result of an acquisition, and there was a lot of attrition. And all of those people today are in higher positions with other companies now,
Right.
since I hired them. And so I'm kind of proud of that. And they'll always say, hey, I'm at this company now. And I'm like, well, good for you, man. I always knew you were a talented guy, and whatever. Um, and so that's a lot. That's rewarding. You don't get to do that in big companies as much. Unfortunately, sometimes you're just a number.
Yeah.
You're an employee now.
Yeah.
And there's people out there that could agree with that and say, yeah, been there, done that.
I remember my number, Tony. We worked at the same company for a while, and I remember the number I have there.
Yeah,
817-018.
yeah. I remember my employee ID from Intel. It's like etched in my brain. The other company you and I work for, I probably have that somewhere, but I don't remember what it was. I
Hey,
wasn't there. I was only there 4 years. So,
right.
um,
Let's go back to pharma, right? What's
sure.
Tell us a bit about your experience in healthcare and pharma, and tie that with what do you think is wrong with the pharma industry today?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to discuss. I think when you look at first and foremost, their business model. When I first got into the industry, R&D was everything in the industry. And without going through the list of companies, you had major R&D in those companies. And at that time, this is like mid 80s, early to mid 80s through the 80s to the early 90s. You had a lot of, real innovation in terms of anti-infectives for fungal infections and pneumonias and things like that. The cardiovascular side had incredible innovation with, anti-cholesterol drugs, urological drugs for men, just a lot of really, I would say, Nobel Prize type innovation. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, maybe the cultures change, leaderships change, whatever. It was really innovate and put something out there that, cured a disease like an infection, or fixed a problem like ventricular arrhythmia, for example. Whereas now it's just like, let's find a pill we can have everybody take every day for the rest of their life, right? Let's not cure the disease. Let's just make them a lifetime customer. And to me, that business model is wrong, because you're not eradicating diseases. And I don't buy into and I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I don't buy into a vaccine every year for the rest of your life either, right? To prevent this or prevent that. And so there's got to be a better way to approach where you're putting people over profits as opposed to profits over people, which has been said a lot about the industry. And I believe AI will enable pharma companies and biotech companies in particular to go back to the innovation that we knew in the early 80s, especially around genetics, genetic engineering. CRISPR is the gene splicing technology. There's some amazing potential there. If you couple that with AI, I really think you can get into the business of curing diseases like cancer. The other side of it is, and this is again going on a completely 180 on the business model, is prevention. Good diet. There's ingredients in food in the United States that are banned in Europe. Fluoride is not in the toothpaste in Europe. It's in the toothpaste here. Why? We won't get into that. But again, all the artificial colorings, all the artificial fillers, we really need to get back to nature and eat food as it's grown, farm to table, and not process everything, because it really doesn't do anything beneficial to our bodies. So there's the prevention side, there's the treatment, and what I'll call the cure side. That's the thing that fundamentally I think should change. And again, I believe AI has a potential there. The other aspect of AI that I think is pretty cool is and this has been around for a while. I'm going to say 30 years, maybe longer. Is they were doing 3D modeling, molecular modeling, to develop drugs back in the day. So you could 3D model how molecules interact in the body biochemically, right? So you add AI to that, and you could almost predict what a drug's going to do based on biochemical pathways.
Yeah,
There's that. The other really interesting and also scary part is if you couple AI with genetic engineering, you could almost get to a predictive model for that, and that is really scary, and that's probably
that's super,
20.
Tony. That reminds me. Have you seen the movie Gattaca with Ethan Hawke?
Yes, I have. Gattaca, yeah.
Gattaca. It reminds me of that, right? I mean, everyone is kind of genetically engineered to be the best,
Well, yeah,
right?
go watch Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner,
Beautiful movie.
again, right?
Beautiful.
So it's not about creating armies, right? It's really about curing diseases. And so there's so much we don't know about disease that we could probably have a step change or a quantum leap in our knowledge and understanding through AI when it comes to things like cancer. Look at the leukemias in kids, look at leukemias in adults, look at lung cancer, colon cancer is very common. And then, things like pancreatic cancer. To me, there's great opportunity there to cure those diseases. If we could, Steve Jobs would still be here, right? Um, as would other people that suffered from that
Yeah.
horrible disease. So the other thing I do believe AI can help, and I'm back to sort of the farm to table conversation here, is looking at natural cures. So if you believe, as I do, that everything that grows on this planet serves a purpose, there's a lot of plants and also um, I don't know, sea creatures, right, that grow in the ocean
Yeah.
that probably have medicinal applications to them, right? And so look at that, right? I just saw this morning that in our country, Congress approved a bill to make psilocybin available for
Yeah.
depression, right? Which is magic mushrooms.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, classifying that as a therapeutic drug is a good idea, and it's taken how long to do that? So there's probably so many other applications. The problem is everybody in the industry is thinking, well, how are we going to make money off of this?
Right.
Well, do you really need to make $1 billion? Do you need to come out with $1 billion a year drug or a $10 billion a year drug? The answer is no. That's not what you're in the business for. So change your business model, change your culture. There's plenty of opportunities to use AI to get there faster. And the more you innovate, the more you'll have. And just by the abundance of that, you'll make money, right? You don't have to be greedy about it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a control thing.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we have two different fields: cures, prevention, or
Yeah.
prevention and cures. Prevention on the causes, diets, or in the middle of prevention and cures, natural cures, right? How AI is going to change everything, how some of the genetic engineering is going to change everything. But then some of the concerns that exist on how the model works, how the incentives work, how the companies work. And so we have different groups of stakeholders here, right? We have the
Yeah.
companies, the pharma companies, we have the people, the consumers. We have the government. Within the government or not, we could talk about the educational system, right?
Right.
Different ways of doing things across the world. But I was wondering, right? You mentioned a lot of natural cures, and in the Eastern medicine, they use that a lot, right? Way more than we do on the West side of the world, right? On the you
Oh,
go to the East, and
absolutely. Yeah.
they just take a lot of different type, different approach to medicine, right? But are they innovating more or not, right? I mean, I was thinking like, okay, do we let it's a system like capitalism, enough to drive companies to where they need to go? I don't know. But is communism, a system that is driving them to where they need to go? I don't know either, because I don't know that in China there's more innovation on cures than in the US, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't look at China per se. I mean, communism, socialism, they're not based on innovation, right? Uh, and everything China has today, they got from the United States. Bill Clinton made sure that all that was transferred over during his presidency. Um, but I will say that they've taken what they had from technology from us, and they've done more with it than we have.
Right.
And I don't believe that's communism. I believe that's state capitalism, and it's probably closer to fascism. But again, don't want to get political here. But look at Japan, um, and look at herbal medicine in China,
Right.
right? Look at the diets in Japan. So if you look at the lifespan of the Japanese culture and the Chinese culture, they live longer than everybody on the planet,
Yeah.
right? Some of your um, let's call it herbal medicines are available here, right? I mean, I use turmeric all the time for everything. I cook with it. I take it every day. Very beneficial effects, right? So, what other things could people take that's natural? Uh, that whole industry's been suppressed by the pharma industry.
But how
Um, that
what's our, I want to take that point and talk
yeah,
about us, right? I like what you said. I also I drink orange juice with turmeric every morning, right? I just pour like a 1 spoon of turmeric in my orange juice in the morning, right?
yeah, yeah,
But how what's our side, right? We as consumers, have we gotten lazy? Have we gotten complacent? Or is it just hard to beat the system? I mean, there are systematic issues, right? I know that if I want to eat healthier, sometimes it can be more expensive, right? It's easier to go, get junk food than to eat healthier. Or is that a myth? If I do it the right way, and if I buy, if I go to the right type of
right,
groceries, I can
right.
spend way less and cook my own stuff. Is it a way, the lifestyle, the always being like doing something else and not even spending time on cooking? Um,
Right.
what's our share as people? What do you think about that?
Yeah, growing up, I mean, I'm from a small town of maybe 30,000 people, right? And we had a local farmers market in town, right? And all the farmers from the surrounding areas would bring everything, vegetables, meats, you name it, fruits, cherries, apples, whatever, to the farmers market. And everybody went there and bought fresh produce and fresh meat every day. They also supplied the local grocery stores too, right? So you had all that. Um, the same town where I grew up in, there is no local farmers market anymore. There's only two grocery stores, and that's it. And if they don't carry it, you have to buy it online. So I'm not sure what happened there, but that to me is there's less choice because there's less competition. And I think the more competition you have, the more choice you have. And getting back to pharma, pharma likes monopolies, right? They use their patents to create monopolies for drug classes, and they won't let anybody else in the drug class. They've even paid generic drug companies for 2 years not to release the generic so they could keep monopoly profits coming. That's where government regulation has failed, in my opinion. Government intervention is good when it benefits consumers from a choice perspective. Government regulation is bad when it limits choice. And I think we have more of the latter and less of the former. And so in my hometown, for example, why aren't there farmers markets anymore? Well, again, without getting political, the city council thought that they could make more money, tax revenue, by taxing all the local businesses downtown. And guess what happened to the downtown? It died. Every shop left. There's very few restaurants downtown that are there. Some are there for 2-3 years and they can't sustain the taxes. They don't make enough money to pay it to live and pay taxes, right? So that's government intervention. I mean, taxation is intervention. I think it's a lot more than that, but it doesn't benefit people if it takes choice away. And so that to me is problematic. I think if you want to have the government do things that are positive, they should give tax breaks for innovation and for cures. And they should penalize, these take a pill for the rest of your life, right? Kind of innovations. I don't buy that. They should not allow all these big drug company mergers and buyouts because all it does is it reduces competition and reduces choice. And then the other thing that I think they need to fix is they need to get the drug companies out of the FDA. So they need to separate the food from the drug administration. And they need to really get back to basics on food. And they need to really get back to changing the business model on the drug side and allowing more competition and generics. The generic drug industry used to be very healthy. It's almost non-existent now. I mean, it's out there, but there's shortages. There's so many problems with raw materials. It's just crazy. And to me, it's, the government hasn't done their part in ensuring more competition and more choice. I know I kind of jumped around a lot.
No, it's perfect. So this is what I'm wondering for the next question is there's a lot of money there and there's a lot of powerful people that I'm sure are in a point in their life where they just want to have a legacy, right? And so many people,
I'm sorry, what?
A legacy, like
okay,
Musk is trying to get to Mars. Bezos is also, with the, like a legacy in terms of, putting your name in history records, right? So let's imagine that somebody like one of these, super powerful, super rich people in the world said, you know what? I want to be the one in the books that, creates the cure for blah, blah, blah. One of those could be Bill Gates, right? Who is, does a lot of investment on, allegedly on that, right? What barriers could they find if we had someone that has that amount of money, right? But still they need to get, into a field that is dominated by big pharma. Would it be too naive for someone like me to believe that maybe Bill Gates, if if you put all the effort in the work with what you're saying with AI and with biotech, could find a cure for certain things that right now are not being found? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you take Bill Gates's Microsoft fortune and you distributed it to everybody in North and South America, you could eliminate poverty, right? Just with how rich he is. Um, Investing in the World Health Organization to develop more vaccines to give to people, to me, is not a good use of his fortune. I don't consider him a role model at all in the medical industry because he's not a physician and he's not a researcher. He's just a guy that got lucky and got really wealthy. Um, so I would like to see people like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. I think he's a little bit more there than the other two. Use your fortune for the better of mankind, right? You got lucky in life. How can you spread that to other people and benefit humanity? And that's the bigger question that never gets answered. And I don't even think they ask it. I mean, going to Mars is one thing. Okay, fine. But let's fix some of the problems here on planet Earth, like garbage, and people say, oh, the climate change.
I agree, but let me rephrase my question
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that it makes more sense. Uh, Forget about what they are doing today. Let's imagine, Bill Gates says, okay, I'm going to fund this super brilliant person that I know can find the cure for blah blah blah. Would there be um a barrier to entry even for a guy like him if he decided to do that? Will there be a barrier to entry because big pharma is so big, because of government regulation, etc., or could someone super powerful, if they decided to do that, which we know they are not doing today?
yeah. So doing genius grants is a great idea. Great idea. And there's one guy that I know that does it. That's Peter Thiel. He'll give you $100,000 to not go to college and start a company and innovate, right? And a lot of young kids take him up on that. So to me, genius grants would be a great idea to fund innovation. And yeah, I mean, could Bill Gates do that? Absolutely. Why not? Why doesn't he?
So you don't think that so if somebody, so the barriers, we just need somebody to really put the attention and put the funds towards really finding a cure. I guess the question I have is, with so many brilliant people in the world and the technology that we have today and AI, etc.,
Yeah, yeah,
why are we not seeing more breakthroughs? Right?
yeah,
And that's the weird thing, that from an ignorant
yeah,
perspective, like from my ignorant point of view, right? It's like
yeah,
we can do so many things, and yet we still struggle with.
yeah. I'm going to answer that a couple different ways. I think, in a broad sense, it's leadership. Again, right? So I'm going to use the World Health Organization, which used to be a very respectable organization. Up until the current leader, everybody that ran WHO was a physician. The guy that's there now is not a physician. He's a PhD. There's a lot of other things I could say that are fact about him, but he's the wrong guy to lead the WHO, right? And why is Bill Gates funding him? Don't know. Um, the other aspect of sort of the why is, and I'll use an example that again is based on historical fact. So Nikola Tesla, which I'm sure everybody knows who he is, he was experimenting on how to generate free energy. And he came very close to doing that. And well, actually, he did do it. And he was working on how to distribute it across the planet, right? And JP Morgan was funding him. And JP Morgan said, well, if it's free, we can't put a meter on it and charge people for it. And JP Morgan pulled out. The rest is history. But the electrical grid in the United States is over 100 years old. And guess who built it? Nikola Tesla, right? With Westinghouse. So you have people that lack humanity in power positions, leadership positions like JP Morgan, that wouldn't allow something amazing to happen. Imagine what the planet would be like if all electricity was free, right? Your home could be heated and cooled. You wouldn't have to, fork out however much a month, right? Businesses could run their factories free on the electricity, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just imagine all that, right? The abundance. And so, again, I think it ties back to leadership. It ties back to, a sense of humanity, and a vision for, evolving. But, unfortunately, we're in an economy a global economy, and I've heard, I can't remember where I read it, and I don't remember who wrote the article, but ever since World War II, we're in a war economy, right? How many wars have there been since 1945? I think it's over 200,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's kind of crazy. That's
Yeah.
not right. And biolabs in Ukraine is a scary thought, right? Because they're doing gain of function on viruses. Why? Those aren't cures. You see what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah.
bad leadership. It's bad leadership. And it's a lack of humanity, and we've become the root of all evil is the love of money, right? And that to me it rings true. The older I get, the more it rings true. There's nothing wrong with liking money and working and making money, and right. But if that's the sole purpose for your existence, there's a problem. And I think we've lost our way.
Do you think we can get it
I
back?
probably have gotten way off topic and way too
No, no,
political. That's just kind of
that's okay.
my life observations at this point.
Do you think we can get it back? Or how can we get it back?
Um, yeah, that's probably a whole other discussion, but I do believe the more people know, the more they educate themselves and become informed, you could create sort of you know a, um, a mass awakening, and just say, look, we're not participating in your economy, right? We're going to create our own economy. I think it's doable, and you don't need a lot of people. I think you need like 2 or 3% of the population to do that. I think we're getting pretty close. I think a lot of people across the world. I'm sure you could talk about Latin America. I can certainly talk about the U.S. I've got friends in Europe. People are fed up. They're fed up with the politicians and the current leadership. I mean, it's like they're all brainwashed, um, and they're pushing people down a path that nobody wants to go down, right? Um,
It's part of
And
what it's an interesting topic, and I think where I have seen a lot of this type of mindset is on the crypto, enthusiast on the crypto. I mean, that kind of is the idea of you know Bitcoin and some other hardcore type
yeah,
crypto coins, like
yeah,
get away from central banks and the usual way of doing
absolutely.
economy.
Yeah. But the central banks are going to fight that all the way, and they're going to try to undermine it. But the whole idea of crypto and blockchain is to decentralize how we transact, right, for business. And it's brilliant because it frees everybody,
Mm.
right? There's no monopoly on money. Today there's a monopoly on money. There's one central bank in the whole planet. And that's not a good thing. So yeah, I do think you have innovation that's coming out, and you have opposing forces to that. But I think in the end of the day, it's probably the decentralized model has to win because people want choice and they want freedom, and they don't want to be controlled by the powers that be. They know what it's like, and they don't like it.
Do you think we could get to a world where we see many more micro players instead of the macro players, the pharma big players, many more with biotech and AI, etc.
Yeah,
Micro players that could be playing a role here, and then
yeah. I do think that if the government scrutinizes acquisitions more and starts saying no, then these smaller biotech companies can get the funding to grow and to innovate. But when they get to a point now, they get bought out, right? They get bought out by a Pfizer or J&J or whatever, right? And God knows what happens to them. So the government, that's to me, that's where the government could say no and regulate that. And I think the person running the FTC now is sort of doing that. Um, Catching a lot of flack for it, but
yeah,
they should,
yeah.
right? Otherwise they're not doing their job. Um, yeah, I don't think you can stop creativity and innovation. I just don't. I mean, back to crypto and Bitcoin. I mean, that just came about, and brilliant idea. Um,
And
and
it's
they're still
changing so
working
many
on it.
things. It's
Yeah,
changing
they're
so many
still,
things, right?
yeah, man, absolutely. They're still working on how to get it implemented globally, and they're almost there. And like I said, the powers that be in central banking are going to fight it. They're going to say it's bad for the world or whatever, and try to undermine it, or try to buy it out and control it, right?
Yeah.
And so the government should say no, absolutely not.
So
Let it
Bitcoin is
be.
now
Yeah.
in all-time highs, and I saw the other day that the U.S. government, I think, ran the biggest transaction ever. I don't want to. I should, quote my sources. I don't have my Reddit, but it's interesting what's going on. It's interesting. I worked for a little while with a company that had a crypto payments solution, enabled merchants all over the world, to accept crypto, and they will give them fiat. Kind of deceiving the whole concept of crypto, but again, for the day-to-day,
Right.
family business that don't want to deal with crypto, they will still be able to accept crypto, right? So it's a very interesting world. Um, do you get scared by AI, or do you feel positive, or do you feel both, depending on the day?
I have a lot of optimism for it. I do think it's being way overhyped right now at this time. Um, but I do think that there's a lot of promise in what can be done with it. And I, like I said, I'm still of the thinking that if it's used for good, the sky's the limit. If it's used for bad, that scares me, right? And I even think Elon Musk said a couple of things about it, right? Where, we have to be careful with
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right? If it gets into the wrong hands, that's concerning, right? There's people in the world that are going to try to use it to get more power,
Yeah.
to get more money, to whatever.
They are already doing it as we
Yeah,
speak.
attack their enemies, whatever, right? I mean, they have. I saw this. I can't remember. It was probably on YouTube or a TED talk, where they showed these little. They looked like they were the size of a bumblebee,
Yeah.
but they were AI controlled robots, and the demonstration was they had a mannequin, and that was the target, and
Yeah.
this bee flew right into the forehead of the mannequin, and there was a bomb in it and blew the head off of the mannequin.
Oh yeah. It's
Okay, again, back to the war economy. We're using AI to kill people. Okay, and okay, you could say, well, we want to be the leader in that to protect ourselves, blah blah blah. But 90% of the money is going there, right? It's not. There's no balance, right? Start investing in things that are going to produce products that will benefit humanity. Again, I think pharma is a great example where you could do that. Um, you could solve complex engineering problems with AI, right? Um, Again, I think that when you bring quantum into that,
oh, it's a different
then
game.
it gets really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because now you could tackle just about any problem there is. Uh,
Back to energy, they were saying that I was reading the other day that the biggest challenge for nuclear fusion is to keep plasma in place, right? And so they are using like huge magnets to do that, the
yeah,
tokamak, right, and all of that. But with AI, theoretically, you could create algorithms that go way faster and kind of predict how plasma is going to deviate from where it should stand with, right? And so that enables you to control it in a much easier way. I mean,
yeah,
the thing with nuclear fusion is we are ready. It's just about controlling,
yeah,
it's the controlling of the plasma, right?
right.
And AI is going to bring us there, and I think we are going to see in our lifetime very amazing things happen, right? I just hope, like you, that we as humanity take
Yeah,
the right course of action, right? And we could be going, Tony, this is, I think we should do like probably 5 episodes, right? But in the interest of time, I do want to ask you one last question. Go
sure.
back to what makes us human, what makes you human. What do you like doing when you are not working?
Well, I have I read a lot, uh, and I enjoy that. And then I'll never be a professional golfer, but I continue to try to be one. Um, and then I love the outdoors. You know, my wife and I like hiking. Yeah, I love walking the dog. He loves, I should say, walking me. Um, so there's a lot of things. I have other hobbies that I like to do, traveling and things like that. So that sort of breaks the stress of doing any kind of work. But I also like what I do from a work perspective. And I think when you're younger, you work because you have to, not necessarily because you like it. And
Right,
then as you get older, it's like, well, I only want to do the things I like.
right.
Why would I do something I don't like? And so I'm at that point where I really like what I do. And I think if you could find that when you're younger, I mean, what a bonus that would be. But not everybody does, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or not everyone realizes, that they like something or what they like. So yeah, it gets me
Yeah.
wondering. Tony, this has been amazing. I appreciate you. You
Great
have an amazing
conversation.
story.
Yeah.
We'll do this again sometime, I'm sure. I think we should stay in touch, see
Yes.
which of the technology is changing, and then talk again and say, hey, remember we were talking about this, and now this has changed. Let's talk about this new thing that it's out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also going to check out your band on your profile.
Very good.
I love
Appreciate it.
jazz. So,
Let me know. Let me know what you
all
think.
right. Thanks, Mateo.
Thank you.